One, two, three, four. Do 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 do. Do 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 do. I used to sing the lyrics, or at least an approximation, and then I've gone back, and then I went to the do do do's, and then I went back to the lyrics, and then I went back to the do do do's. I don't know why you said in the pre-meeting that no one would want to hear that. I think I've proven myself correctly. Hi, everybody. Sorry I'm late again. I was recently reminded of, in this topsy turvy showbiz world in which I unfortunately find myself, not unfortunately find myself mostly on the outside of, I was reminded how important it is to be consistent with these things. And, I used to do it every Wednesday, obviously, because that's the name of the thing. Switched to Thursday a couple months ago because that's how my schedule kind of works out. And almost immediately stopped doing it on any kind of regular basis. But new year, new same old shit, I guess. I don't know. Who cares? This was a very light week, being as it is the holiday taint, and the only pick I had was this Swamp Thing Green Hell #1 by Jeff Lemire and Doug Mahnke. In the immortal words of Glenn Danzig, it's just like hell, but kind of green. This is another Black Label production, as you can tell by the oversized format. I also think this got a little bit wet during the monsoon we've had here in Los Angeles this week, which is a bummer, but not to be completely unexpected, I suppose. It also just doesn't, these don't travel well in a grown man's backpack on the bus. Jeff Lemire, I've talked about at length as being certainly one of the finest writers that DC has managed to acquire over the last decade. Um, one of those writers who's clearly just madly in love with the DC universe, and also drawn by Doug Mahnke, who I haven't. He's mostly a DC guy, and I haven't read a lot of his. I think he's drawn detective these days, but known to me as the co-creator of The Mask, which was of course made into a film starring James Carey. Comic book is obviously way better, and I'm sure Mahnke got a big piece of that movie, though. I would hope him and Arcudi both, since they were the creators and also owners, since that was published by Dark Horse Comics, which was one of those indie publishers that doesn't own everything like Marvel. Marvel and DC are the only ones who still do that. I'm sure that wasn't always the case. I can't imagine trying to imagine a comic book company now. I mean, the fact that Marvel and DC doesn't cut in to anybody, like a lot of the properties that make it onto the large and small screen were created within the last 20 years, and or if not the characters, then the stories that are being depicted. And they don't get any of that. They might get a nod in the credits, and some of them I think have worked out a deal to some extent. Like I think Jim Starlin got a piece of the Endgame movie, and he was also in it briefly. What does that have to do with anything? Doug Mahnke also drew the Seven Soldiers Frankenstein series, which I love. Seven Soldiers was a very um, complex, as is his wont, complex story by Grant Morrison from the late aughts. The Seven Soldiers, I believe, were an old like Silver Age or Bronze Age DC thing, and then Grant Morrison did this very long thing where there were 7 different miniseries that all you could read them all separately, or you could read them in the order they're published and follow that story that way. And the Frankenstein one was so good that I believe they even gave him his own series, which I think Doug Mahnke. Hi. Apparently now when I just open this computer is falling apart. I hate it. Happy New Year to this laptop. I can't wait to throw you off a bridge. Anyway, what I was getting at was that Frankenstein and Agents of Shade was its own series, but that was written by Jeff Lemire and drawn by Alberto Ponticelli, so it wasn't Mahnke. But anytime I see Doug Mahnke's name on something, I know I'm in for some quality work.
And this is a great cover. I'm a little bummed because the 1 in 25 variant was a Francesco Francavilla cover, who I'm a huge admirer of Francesco Francavilla, but not enough to pay double cover so I can get a 1 in 25 variant. But yeah, this will be fun. And apparently, from what I had read, because this is my recommend for the week for Galaxy of Comics, it currently Swamp Thing. I can't remember the character's name, and if I try to look it up, the computer will turn the camera off. Oh right. I can't remember the character who is Swamp Thing now, but Alec Holland. I mean, it was true during. All right. Swamp Thing was created in the 70s by Len Wein and Bernie Wrightson, and then in the 80s they gave it to a plucky young writer by the name of Alan Moore, full of hope and wonder, and destroyed him. But they gave him Swamp Thing, and he revolutionized the book as well as the character, as well as all of DC's kind of magic universe. Hi. Because in the pages of that book, he created John Constantine the Hellblazer and a lot of other, the whole Parliament of Trees, and the fact that the Swamp Thing is in fact the Avatar of the Green. All this stuff that's considered, absolute Swamp Thing lore, all Alan Moore. The Wein and Wrightson stuff barely gets any kind of mention in the current in any Swamp Thing stories since. When Alan Moore left that book, he was replaced on writing duties by who had been his artist, was Rick Veitch. And Rick Veitch's run is tremendous. I even wrote a big, long essay about his run. And I think just kind of Rick Veitch's superhero stuff in general for Pop Matters, another Smarty Farts website that doesn't pay its writers. Pays them in exposure. Thank you. I can get naked on my own. But yeah, Veitch's run was really good. And then any Swamp Thing really, though, after Alan Moore is just kind of gravy as far as I'm concerned. And this was especially apparent. After Veitch, I think Swamp Thing kind of limped along into the 90s for a little while before it kind of petered out. Occasionally, Brian K. Vaughan started writing it again, and it would start up again, and it was almost always kind of calling back to the Alan Moore years. When they started the New 52 in 2011, they started the series over and gave it to, I want to say, Lemire had it. No, I think Scott Snyder had it first, and then Lemire took over. Whichever way that goes, I'm pretty sure I read the whole thing. And Lemire, I think especially, I could be wrong, because Lemire was also writing Animal Man at the time, and since I hadn't read the Grant Morrison Animal Man or any real Animal Man, I eventually dropped the Jeff Lemire Animal Man because he was referring back to a lot of the Grant Morrison stuff. But also Animal Man and Swamp Thing started crossing over, because where Swamp Thing was the Avatar of the Green, Animal Man was the Avatar of the Red, I believe, was where they were going with this. And the concept of the red as being in opposition to the green, I believe that was either Lemire or Snyder. It definitely came out of the New 52. And I was like, oh, this is a particular wrinkle. So having Alec, and then that was the other thing I believe in that run of Swamp Thing, Alec Holland is like, why the hell am I still Swamp Thing? I almost swore. And I don't remember how that ends, to be quite honest with you. But I remember being pretty satisfied with that run of Swamp Thing. No Alan Moore, but what are you going to do? The current run of Swamp Thing, as written by Ram V, has been fine. I've been reading it. I mean, it was only supposed to be 10 issues, and then they bumped it up to 16 for some reason. Why don't you just make it a regular series that you're going to cancel after 16 issues anyway? I don't know. But the character is a completely different guy, which is not the first time, but it is kind of, I don't know, just I just keep it Alec Holland, but it does kind of not, like, why would Alec Holland still be the Swamp Thing? This particular story, from This Was All to Say, takes place in the not too distant future, and Alec Holland is once again the Swamp Thing, which doesn't surprise me because it's Jeff Lemire writing it. And for one thing, I don't think Jeff Lemire would want to write the current Swamp Thing character, since Ram V's already kind of doing kind of his thing. But also, I think Lemire is just kind of more into the Holland stuff anyway. So this is supposed to be really dark, where it's like in the future and humanity's about done, but the Earth is like, we got to get them out of here, so they send in the Swamp Thing to do so. That's what I get from the solicit, and it honestly sounds like pretty good. Any story where the dregs of humanity are being eliminated for the good of all, I am on board. Happy New Year! It's the New Mutants graphic novel from almost 40 years ago, 39 years ago. Uh, Ironically enough, called Renewal. Um, Little joke for me. That was Picks of the Week. Ba-da-ba-da-ba-da. Now, Picks of the Week. All right. I have been reading a pretty good chunk. I've been reading along at a pretty good clip. But a lot of it, again, has just been stuff that I've already talked about. Tuesday, for example, I had the day off. And so I got up at like 7:30 and immediately started doing laundry. I was done with my laundry by 3:30 p.m. And I read comics the whole time, but since I had to keep getting up and going to I never felt like I got into a groove with it. So the following day, Wednesday, when I got home, I want to say 2 o'clock, 1 o'clock, maybe even earlier than that, I started reading again. And again, though, it was just like I got into a groove. Never really, I don't know. That's probably for the best. And then I also went and saw Spider-Man No Way Home. Wouldn't you know it? There was a Spider-Man movie. It was good. I feel like I had something, but nope. So first up, I read Nightwing number 87. And like I was saying last week, I don't generally read Nightwing, but and I think I might have said as much, but if you take this whole issue and lay all the pages end to end, they all connect. And all the action is moving through. It's really something. It's not the first time somebody's done something like this, although it's definitely the first time that I can remember recently. It's this sort of thing that it was a lot of fun to read, and I didn't really need to know what was happening. You know, Nightwing's a superhero. End story. It's exactly this sort of thing, though, that when all the success that they've had with superhero movies and TV shows, etc. Hooray for our side, but that you can't do anything like this in a movie or a TV show or a song or any other sort of art form. Comic books, sequential art, as Will Eisner / Scott McCloud call it, is its own art form, and it's always it should bug anybody who thinks about this for more than 2 seconds. This notion of whenever they make, now that movies are successful, the superhero movies are successful, there's like this kind of victory lap that we're all taking. See, everybody loves this sort of thing. And it was pathetic in the past, and it's not any less so now because it's true. But really, it doesn't need to be adversarial. All I'm saying is, in the same way that if you read a screenplay, it wouldn't be the same as watching a movie. If you see a comic book as a movie, it's not the same thing as reading a comic book. And personally, I would just rather read comic books than do almost anything. So, I guess that was all I really needed to say. I didn't need to be all shitty about it. I'm not even in a particularly bad mood, except for the fact that my computer's been even crappier than usual lately. I also read King Conan #1, which I'm trying to remember now. Oh yeah, a lot of different artists. So this is again not a lot. All right, no, it's just Mom Sorry. Because the Jason Aaron's last Conan run was also concerned the death of Conan, and then this is supposed to be the same thing. And of course, Tophamon is there at the end. Really good stuff, fun stuff, great stuff, fun stuff, great stuff. It's kind of hard to, because I'm Conan. The Conan book I read the most these days is Savage Avengers, and that's story has kind of gotten into its own timeline now. So I can't hold two Conan stories in my head. This was a lot of fun. Avengers Forever #1. So as I believe I mentioned, the new Masters of Evil, who are comprised of villains from a bunch of different timelines, are conspiring to kill the Avengers in every timeline if they can. And so Robbie Reyes, the Ghost Rider, has been kind of roped into fighting them along with a bunch of Deathlocks. And in this one, we meet Tony Stark, the astonishing Ant-Man. And so in this particular reality, the Masters of Evil have effectively destroyed everything. There's a handful of, there's no superhumans left, but there is Tony Stark, and instead of building the Iron Man costume, he gets a hold of Hank Pym's technology and builds that, and that's all that's really happened so far. But yeah, it's my favorite sort of thing. And again, look at this, Russell Dodderman, you've done it again. And finally, this was not something that I mentioned last week, but it is a recent acquisition. I read Submariner number 37 from 1969, I want to say it was. Written by Roy Thomas, drawn by Ross Andrew, although this is a Sal Buscema cover, as confirmed by my friend Frank. So, a few months ago, and I believe I talked about it on here, I read the Prince Namor the Submariner miniseries from the mid-'80s. I can't remember who wrote it now, but Bob Budiansky drew it. And there was a lot of mention of Dorma, who is Namor's one true love, and how she had been dead for a while. And I was like, oh, that's right, Dorma isn't alive. Because I knew somewhere in my head that Dorma was Namor's like first wife. I mean, he's been romantically involved with many women, usually blonde, but in this case, not so much. His own cousin, I think he was even involved with for a while. It's different for royals, everybody. They can do that sort of thing. God wants it, or in this case, Poseidon wants it. So after reading that, and Roy Thomas actually might have written that miniseries now that I'm thinking about it. Again, can't look it up because my computer sucks. I looked into it. I was like, when did Dorma die and why exactly? And it was in this issue. Roy Thomas said that at the time, anyway, they felt that Namor not having a romantic interest would be better for his character. And which I think is probably true. Now I'm having trouble remembering exactly what Roy Thomas said about it, but I want to say it was along the lines of Namor is a pretty unsympathetic character. He's a king, and he's kind of a dick about it, as kings tend to do. So having Dorma was kind of softening him. And then also they felt that if they killed her, then that would also kind of return him to the angrier Namor that they wanted to do. And so Dorma fell the way, not dissimilar to how Gwen Stacy died by editorial decision. But then those characters always, like Gwen Stacy, take on this mythic, and it's really just an extension of the woman in the refrigerator thing. But since it's before I was born, I find it more charming, I guess. But anyway, I just been thinking about this since reading that, and then this came across. That's one of the best things about working at this comic shop now is that I get first dibs on this. So this came. I was going through a box of stuff, and this popped up, and I was like, "Oh, I think this is the one where she dies." And I looked it up, and sure enough, it costs $18. But of course, I get a employee discount. So, P.S. If you are in the Van Nuys area and you are looking for back issues, now would be the time because I've been working my narrow ass off, and I've been adding a lot to the back issues. A lot of it's junk, if I'm being honest. But I mean, if that's the sort of thing you're into, if you want a bunch of copies, a bunch of issues of Marvel Tales, for example, beautiful Galaxy of Comics at the corner of Louise and Sanacoy in scenic Van Nuys, California. All right, that was fixed up last week. All right, well, now I gotta edit these together. Post production, I gotta do on this bullshit now. All right, see you next year.